You're listening to Your Jewish Life, Your Way with Karen Cinnamon, the podcast that explores what it feels like to be Jewish or Jewish in 2021. On the show, we divulge all of the secrets and know-how to being confident in celebrating and living your Jewish life your way, with easy ways to embrace your mishpacha through the traditions and rituals you've been dying to learn more about, without having to compromise life's everyday hustle. So save your kvetching, because we are talking less Jewish guilt and more Jewish joy here on out. Yalla, forget about the right and wrong ways to be Jewish. It's time to create a Jewish life you love living. I have got such a fun episode for you today, all about not just Jewish food, which obviously you're expecting to hear about with my guest, Amy Becker. She's the founder of the award-winning cooking blog, What Do You Want to Eat? And I love her millennial twists on traditional Jewish food, like you may remember her fried pickle latkes from last year and her pumpkin fig rogalach. She's just so creative. But we also talked a lot about living your Jewish life your way and ways that you can be, the same Jew, more you Jew, we really talked about how we've both done that and lots of ideas for you to live your Jewish life your way. And I think you'll feel so inspired and full of zest after this episode. And make sure that you drop me a DM on Instagram at Jewish Life and let me know which bit you loved, or even better, take a screenshot while you're listening, pop it on your Instagram stories, tag Your Jewish Life, tag Amy at What Do You Want to Eat, and let us know what you enjoyed most about the episode, because it is such a fun one. I can't wait to hear what you think. Amy is an absolute superstar. She's inside our Smashing Life community. She's a member of Smashing Life, which, if you don't know, is my community membership club for Jewish and Jewish women. As I say, she's the founder of an award-winning cooking blog, What Do You Want to Eat? She is author of the cookbook Sweet Noshings, which I'm lucky enough to have a copy. It's fabulous. And she's also the co-owner of the cool online Judaica store, Modern Tribe. She's an absolute superstar. I think you're going to love this episode. Let's dive in. Hey, Amy, it's so good to see you today. You're in Puerto Rico, is that right?
Yes, I am, Karen. Watching the ocean as we speak here.
Oh, fantastic. I'm so excited that you're my first ever podcast guest. This is historical. And I couldn't think of anyone better. You're an absolute legend on Instagram, TikTok, the food world. This is so exciting. So I'm excited to get to know you even better than I already do today, hopefully.
Great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be the inaugural guest here.
We got to dive right in and talk about Jewish food. On our Instagram account, which is all about Jewish life, I'd say most of it is about Jewish food. Why is food such a big one for us?
I think food, if you think about any Jewish celebration or even a Shiva, there is food. There's always food. So Hanukkah, you have latkes, or sufganiyot. Passover, you have matzo ball soup. And just the smells of the food bring back holidays. And I think they just are so familiar for people and so comforting. And for a lot of people, that is a big part about being Jewish, are these recipes and familiar scents that bring you back to your childhood and connect you to your ancestors too. So I think food is really fun and doesn't have to be taken so seriously, but it is also very reminiscent of our Jewish ancestors and very important at the same time. So I think it's an easy gateway into Judaism. If you're looking to get more into your Jewish life, starting with food cannot hurt.
That's what I love about it. You can bake a challah and you feel so Jewish and so fabulous. And it's also, I suppose, connected to our culture, warm and homely and inviting. And I think we all know, growing up Jewish, that if you go to a Jewish home, you'll be served some food. It's in our DNA.
And a lot of food. I used to, when I was a private chef a few years back, I cooked for this family that would always say, we're having 6 people, but cook for 12. They did not want it to look like someone was going to take the last thing, or they wanted everyone to make sure they had plenty of what they wanted. So I think that really kind of stuck in my brain. I remember that tidbit for a long time.
And I have to say, it reminded me of when I went to my first non-Jewish wedding as an adult, and I was like, what, that's it? That's all the canapes they've served? And we just have to drink wine for like 2 hours till dinner? Where's the food? So let's start from the beginning. I want to hear about your life growing up. Was it, did Judaism play a role in your life growing up? Let's start at the beginning.
Sure. I lived in Connecticut in a few different towns, but the town I mostly grew up in was a very Jewish town that I kind of took for granted growing up. So I went to public school, but we got Jewish holidays off because there were so many people, students and teachers, that would not be there on the Jewish holidays. And that just seemed very normal to me. Of course, we're going to get Rosh Hashanah off and Christmas off. And then, I went to synagogue growing up, but a Reform synagogue. We mostly went on high holidays, and Batmitzvah season was the season. I probably went to 50 bar and Batmitzvahs that year I was 13. It was the peak of my social life, and it's been downhill since there. I went to Jewish summer camp in Massachusetts. So I grew up doing a lot of Jewish things, but to me, these were just normal things. I didn't even really think of it as Jewish until I got older. This was just, kind of when you're younger, the way you're raised is how you assume everyone's raised. And then you grow up and you're like, what do you mean you don't have dinner with your family every night? You're like, what? And then you realize everyone grew up differently. So these were just kind of normal things to me at the time. And then when I went to college in Georgia, which is far away from Connecticut, I couldn't get home for every Jewish holiday. And it was a much larger mix of people. I met people who had never met Jews before. And that was really interesting to me. And at the same time, I hadn't met people like them before. They took me to NASCAR, and then I took them to Passover Seder. So it was a good exchange. So that kind of got me thinking these are traditions that are unique to maybe my family and people like me, and it would be fun to share them with other people. So that kind of got my taste of sharing Judaism with others. And eventually I started my blog years later, but I think that was where it all started. One Passover, when I couldn't go back to Connecticut, I decided to host, and we had about 30 people in my dorm, and everyone got a bottle of Manischewitz, and I wrote a Haggadah, tried to make it funny, and it was probably maybe half Jews, half not, and I loved it, and it really brought me closer to all my friends that I had known for a year at the time. So that really was kind of a changing point for me. I loved that.
So your experience of kind of, you had a very Jewish, in inverted commas, childhood, surround, Jewish community, lots of Jewish friends. And then when you, moved away from that, you actually shared your Jewish culture with your non-Jewish friends to sort of brought them in. Is that what you're saying? When you had the Seder, or was it still it wasn't separate, we're the Jewish people and with the Jewish.
Oh no, for me it was I had gone to people's Christmases before, and I had gone with them Easter egg hunting, and it wasn't something I wanted to do myself. It was these are your traditions. Thanks for sharing them with me, and here's my traditions. I'll share them with you now. So it wasn't, I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. It was kind of here's something cool I do, and here's something cool you do, and my friends shared right back. So, and it was just kind of ironic that after college I moved to New York City, which has a lot of Jews. And then I kind of reversed a little bit, because when you're just surrounded by so many people that are like you, you're like, no, we just eat bagels. It's kind of enough. But then when I was around people that weren't familiar with the customs as much, I wanted to share and teach and, experiencing things together more. So I thought that was kind of something ironic that I didn't realize until later, but made a lot of sense to me looking back.
That's really interesting. Sometimes when we're in an environment, only when, let's say when you're at college, you kind of feel even more Jewish, and you wanted to share that with your non-Jewish new friends that you're meeting. And I think that is such a lovely lesson for us all to learn. Sometimes we think if we're in an environment where maybe there aren't many other Jews, that we just have to kind of, do Friday night dinner with the one Jew we know. But it's tell me about the experience of sharing Friday night dinner with non-Jewish people, because I personally get such a buzz out of it, don't you?
Yeah, it's my favorite thing to do. So it's actually, after I lived in New York, I moved to Texas, and that's where I started my blog. And it was kind of a similar journey. I was going to start a baking blog, and then my brother had the idea to start a Jewish food blog. And he said, ask your friends in Texas if they know what a knish is. And I grew up very Ashkenazi, New York, family from New York. So I was like, oh, they've never heard of that. This would be fun to share again. And then when I moved to Puerto Rico, I wanted to have Passover Seder here. So I invited all my new friends here that had never been before, which was funny because one of the couples, they weren't familiar with Passover Seder at all. So they Googled it. And on Wikipedia, it describes a much more observant way of doing Passover Seder than I do it. So they were expecting like a 2-hour long, Seder, and then they wouldn't eat till the end. So like they had like cheeseburgers before they came because they weren't sure what they were gonna eat.
I love that.
Like, oh my God. And they came over and we had like sushi that we had made prepared. Like we're very, not traditional in that sense. So that was really fun. I was like, oh, I should have warned you, like, don't look on Wikipedia. This is mine. This is like, it's a party. I mean, my Seder is like 20 minutes long, but we do have the 4 glasses of wine. So it was, it was different. But it's fun. I think it's actually makes you kind of think about things you don't normally think about. When you go through the motions with your own family, you're like, all right, that's what we do every year. And then when you bring in someone new, they're like, well, why do we do this? And then you're like, oh, I never thought about this, or I hadn't thought about this in a while. This is like, it kind of sparks new discussion. So I think, and that kind of message you can translate to almost anything, not just Jewish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Experiences. But yeah, like having people who aren't as familiar and teaching them, they ask really great questions too. So to me, it's super fun.
And later on, I want to talk about some of the sort of really big things you've done during the pandemic, which has kind of taken what you've just said to a whole new scale with massive virtual Seders for all sorts of people you don't know. Yeah. But sticking with where we are for a moment, when you talked about, sushi at your Seder, some people would say, can you do that? A lot of the questions that I get are, is it okay to do X? Is it okay to do Y? Can you tell me a little bit about what your Jewish life, your way means to you?
Sure. I mean, I think you can do really anything. Like I personally don't keep kosher. I rarely go to synagogue. These are not the ways that are meaningful to me to be Jewish, but like I love wearing Jewish jewelry. I'm wearing our twin earrings today. You can't see. Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
And I love hosting for Jewish holidays and making new Jewish recipes and connecting with people online. And like, for me, that's enough. And, people always ask me if a mezuzah, do I have to have a kosher scroll? I'm like, you can do whatever you want. You can print something off, you can write Shema by yourself. I don't care. It's whatever means something to you, I think is enough. So I think people kind of, if you get caught up in, am I doing this right? Or did I have the right number of this? Or did I do this at the right time? Then I think you're losing the meaning a little bit. If you're worrying about the specifics more than just the intention.
It drains the joy out of it. And I think
it's so stressful. Don't stress. Yeah. People with, you had brought up the Seders during the pandemic, and like people were like, oh, I don't have, I can't find horseradish. I'm like, that's not, who cares? Like, get something else that's spicy, or, or put some wasabi on there, whatever you want. And that's horseradish basically. So, just do what you can, and not even just during a pandemic, and do it with meaning, and it'll work out.
And something that sparks joy. I think that's what we both connect about. We are all about Jewish joy. Take one look at Amy's Instagram feed. What do you want to eat? It is an explosion of color and fun and puns and just a good time. And I think we forget sometimes that we don't have to be all about Jewish trauma or Jewish guilt. We are allowed to have a good time being Jewish.
I know. I do that with my blog and my store. I think like a lot of Jewish stuff is like dark colors, and we've had a lot of oppression, but I think I'm more about the celebratory, and of course recognizing the experiences of our past, but also just that we have a lot to celebrate, and there's a lot of fun in being Jewish. And I think sharing that with other people, then Judaism is less like weird and scary. They're like, oh, this is a fun, awesome religion. These people are great. Like, why is there all this anti-Semitism? I love Jews.
And in fact, speaking of sort of color and fun, obviously I'd heard of Amy ever since I started Smashing the Glass way back in 2013, but we only connected and built a friendship through Amy getting engaged, and obviously her engagement photo on Instagram or just proposed photo was kind of caught my eye as owner of Smashing the Glass. You're wearing the shirt.
I was wearing a different rainbow shirt.
Yeah, we'll have to link to that Instagram post in the show notes. But it was just colorful and fun, and it was like, wow, I have to invite Amy into my bridal club. We need to kind of be part of her wedding plans, and we just connected straight away, and we've been
well, I had stalked your blog before, but then I wasn't engaged yet, so that's you don't want to be
normal.
too obvious. People
normally start people normally start following Smash in the Glass about 2 years before they actually get engaged. But no, we and we're not.
I was watching it before I even met my husband. So
yeah, pretty normal.
They're so fun. Yeah.
Pretty standard. We and Amy and I, we're not just internet friends. We've actually met in real life in New York, and I'm just so grateful you got engaged, so we could become
me too, and my mom is too.
We'll talk about your wedding in a bit. I want to hear about that, but and I also want to hear some of those bat mitzvah stories that you talked about. 50 bat mitzvahs. There's got to be some great stories there. It reminds me of that film 50 First Dates, 50 Bar Mitzvahs. There's got to be a ton. There's got to be a film in
that. That should be a new movie. I love that idea.
But I know a lot of people want to, hear more about the food, seeing as I'm interviewing you. So let's start off with just some. Another question I get asked a lot, and I don't know why I get asked this because I am not the Jewish food aficionado. I always tag you in these sort of comments.
Oh yeah.
What? Give me. I'd love to hear 5 Jewish foods that, us busy 20, 30, 40-year-old women should learn to cook, and why, in your opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a tricky question, because depending on your Jewish background, like I grew up very Ashkenazi, so there's recipes that are more familiar to me. Since I've started my food blog, I've explored all the different types of Jewish food, and I love all of them. So it's really fun, and it's hard to pick 5 just out of those. And it also, when I'm showing people how to cook, especially people that haven't cooked before, who are just very intimidated to hold a knife, they've never made themselves any kind of dinner, I really kind of start back with techniques, which I think can help you with the recipes too. So things like, for me, making matzo ball soup. If you know how to make a broth and you can make chicken broth, you can use that in so many recipes. You can use that to make sauces. The broth or the stock will add so much flavor to your other recipes. Plus, I just love matzo ball soup. So I think learning how to make a stock and then using it for matzo ball soup is a great technique to have. One of my favorite things to make is brisket. Also, when I lived in Texas, brisket is king there. But there they would always have it smoked. So the first time I served, actually at Thanksgiving or Friendsgiving, Thanksgiving, whatever you called it. Oh no, that was the Hanukkah Thanksgiving. No, this was that Thanksgiving. I made a Jewish kind of Thanksgiving brisket. It was braised in coffee and whiskey with cranberries. But it was
wait. This is when Thanksgiving and Hanukkah actually fell on the same day, or you just made it a thing?
Yes. This was when they fell on the same day, but also I would make brisket for Thanksgiving anyway. Yes. When I lived in Texas, we'd have 30 people over for Thanksgiving, we call them our vagabond friends, people with nowhere to go for Thanksgiving. So it was always a party.
Right there, because again, that's another nugget, that Thanksgiving occur. Like, people think, am I allowed, again, a lot of permission questions. Can we do Christmas, Hanukkah, Thanksgiving? You make it your own and fuse, just like Amy does. And
Christmas, people go all big for that. I think that's totally kosher, if you will. If your significant other celebrates Christmas, you celebrate Hanukkah, you can do something together. I don't think that's making less of either one of those special events, just as long as it brings meaning to you, and then you make your own traditions too. Someone once asked me, they grew up without a religion, and they grew up in a small town in the Midwest without any specific regional food, and they felt like they had no food. They didn't have anything. They're like, what is my food? And I said, surely there's something. Like, is there something that reminds you of your childhood, or something? And they came down to this casserole that their grandmother used to make, and I was like, that's your culture. You can have this casserole as your culture. It doesn't have to be something like profound necessarily, but
absolutely.
Anyway, back to the food. So brisket is something I love to teach how to make too, because it's so easy to prep, and then it just becomes this magic. So learning how to braise is another great technique. So with briskets, it's tough cut of meat. You brown it to add flavor, and then just cook it low and slow in a liquid for hours. And then it comes out this tender, delicious food, and you hardly have to do anything to it. So
I'm embarrassed.
I think that's something kind of magic.
I've never made brisket myself, because I think it's a scary thing. Am I good that completely wrong?
It's not scary. We'll do it. Yeah, it's totally not scary. You can't mess it up, honestly. You could just honestly take brisket, dump a bottle of wine on it, seasoning, cook it for 3 hours on the stovetop. That'll be good.
And I'll look like a professional chef.
You can hardly mess it up. So brisket, I love. Challah, I think that can be intimidating too because of yeast. But I think once you get it's tricky too. Like when I make challah here in Puerto Rico, it's super humid. You can see my hair. I have to always add more flour. It tends to rise a little faster. So you kind of have to learn what the challah is supposed to feel like. It's like a dance. It's romantic. You're touching the challah. What is it supposed to feel like? So I think it's the kind of thing you have to make a few times to figure out. But worst case, you have a dry challah or something, make French toast. So I think that's something I like to emphasize too, is that it's just food. People are very intimidated to cook, especially for a major holiday. And of course you want your food to be delicious, but you gotta
start somewhere. You gotta give it one shot. Yeah, it'll be better the second time.
If you burn the whole thing, just like order pizza, it's fine. And everyone's gonna have a good time, and they're just there for the company, and you'll do it again next year. It's totally fine.
And what I love about challah is the way you can personalize it for literally any theme, any holiday. It's like the new chuppah. You can make it your own.
I love it. I love all the different braids people do too.
Did you see that? Did you see, excuse the pun, the way it rose kind of during lockdown, like this rise?
Yes. I had so many more questions about challah than I ever have before. People making it for the first time, which I think makes sense because a lot of people were working from home. So you need to be home for a few hours on a Friday to make challah. So, and I think it's very comforting too. And there's something, I think we talked about this on one of our other chats, that during the peak of the pandemic, every day kind of felt the same, and it was a little, discouraging and stressful, and there was a lot of unknown. And I think even if you weren't someone who normally participated in Shabbat, there's this nice thing that you're like, all right, this is Friday, I'm going to relax. It's separate from the rest of the week. I'm going to make this challah. It feels different. So I think that kind of helps not every day and every moment feel the same when you're, in the middle of a pandemic.
And what I'll say, we actually did a Shabbat masterclass yesterday inside Smashing Life, our community membership for Jewish women, which Amy is a wonderful member of as well.
Yeah,
and one of the things that came up was one of our members was saying she actually works as a vet, and she works all weekend and Fridays, and her weekend is actually Tuesday and Thursday. And how is she supposed to incorporate Shabbat? And we said, you can choose a day that's your Shabbat. It can be Tuesday. I bet you there's someone else in Smashing Life who's also got the same problem, and you can both be kind of Shabbat partners on Tuesday. So for anyone who's listening and thinking, oh, I'd love to make challah, I don't have time. If you want to, you can make it again. Do it your way. What is going to spark joy for you with that challah making on a Tuesday?
Yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah. So we've done challah, brisket, matzo ball soup. Did I miss the fourth one?
I don't know. I could name 10, so I'll keep going.
I
would definitely say I would say latkes. Latkes are one of my favorite things to make. You can also get kind of creative with the toppings, but really it's hard to beat a classic. And I've made latkes so many times that I have a lot of like little teeny tricks in that kind of make the best latkes. And I've had a lot of people that made my latkes that said they're the first time they made them and they came out well. So I'll take that as a good response. Yeah.
What's your best latke tips?
So probably the best one is adding some potato starch, and that helps crisp up the latkes more. And I do that by soaking the shredded potatoes in some ice water, and that draws out the starch already in the potato. And then you dry off the potatoes really well, drain off the water, and then on the bottom is this white milky kind of starch that you add back to the latkes. And that helps them be like super creamy on the inside, crispy on the outside. I think that's the key. But there's so many tricks. Like you want to make sure you have enough oil. You want to make sure that the heat is high enough. I like to add a little piece of carrot while I'm frying, because that helps. Somehow it's like magic, probably science, but it soaks up all the little burn bits that kind of can flake off and then stay in the oil and burn over time. It soaks those up so they stay away from your latkes. Make sure to salt them after you fry them. Cool them on a cooling rack, not just like put them on the plate so they'll stay crispy on both sides. It's such a simple food, but there's a lot of different techniques involved.
And I've seen Amy make those latkes firsthand. Last Hanukkah, she did a brilliant, what did we call it? A latke cook-off or something at Hanukkah?
Yeah, I don't remember the name. I was going to say Latkapalooza, but that doesn't sound like it. I don't know why.
It was something fun where she was kind of teaching live and our members were making them at the same time. And it was great fun. And again, another really good recipe to do if you've never made some Jewish food before. Grate some potatoes, a little bit of oil, We'll
You
link.
don't have to wait until Hanukkah. Do not have, make them now.
And also all these recipes that Amy's mentioned, recipes or foods, they can all be, in this day and age, in 2021, the year we're recording, kind of tailored to different types of Judaism. So for instance, I've seen Asian challahs, I've seen multicultural latkes. I'm sure you've seen it all too.
Oh yeah, people
Amy.
get so creative, and I love to add twists on to Jewish recipes too. So some things like matzo ball soup, it's like I always love the classic. But then I've made like matzo ball. What did I do one? Oh, this like Greek like lemon rice soup with matzo balls in it, and that was really great. So you can get creative and try new things and go back to the classics too.
And tell us about your viral latkes from last year that
everyone
went mad for.
These are the fried pickle latkes. It's so funny when sometimes I do a recipe and you're like, this one's gonna be so great, and then like no one makes it. And then like I knew people were gonna like the fried pickle latkes, but I just didn't know it was gonna get so much press.
Yeah.
And so many different people made it, like hundreds of people made them, and at least people that tagged me in it, and it was on Good Morning America on their website and all kinds of stuff. So it was super cool. And I love pickles. Pickles are also very Jewish, so I think maybe that kind of played a key in it. But it was a piece of a pickle stuffed into latke and fried and served with an everything bagel ranch, and they were awesome.
So tell me, as a Jewish food influencer, and you're getting tagged, you have to think up a recipes. Are holidays kind of stressful and busy for you more than anyone else, or how do you balance like making the holiday for yourself?
It's really big. So usually it's like 2 months or even more before the holiday is when I'm coming up with the recipes. Sometimes even sooner than that. Like I've already done some for Hanukkah, and we're recording this in July. So I do that really far ahead. For my store, Modern Tribe, we order products 3 months ahead of time. So then when it gets closer to the holidays, people are asking me more questions. With Modern Tribe, we're shipping a lot more products. And then by the time it's the holiday, it's okay. I get to celebrate and do things, my way too. So it's busy, but I like to be busy. I'm not going to say it's calm.
Yeah,
it works. Yeah,
I agree with you. I think we almost get extra hype and extra fun because we've got this great online community that it's very, very uplifting, I find.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Jewish holiday, and why?
Yes, mine is. I love it. All the holidays. I love every holiday. I love holidays. So I love celebrating. But Passover is my favorite, which I think some people are surprised to hear as a food person. And Passover food doesn't have the best reputation. But I love Passover food, and I love the challenge of getting creative with the limitations of Passover. So I think to me that's really fun. And I love the Seder. I love all the symbolism and all the different kind of steps we take for the Seder, and just like the prep and making your table pretty. And Seder is something that kind of started me on my Jewish hosting journey back in college. And I don't think I've had Seder with my own family. Maybe once in the past, 15 years. So people are like, oh,
why is that?
No, I love it.
Yeah, why is that?
Because I don't live near them. And I don't know, I was in Texas, and I was in California, now I'm in Puerto Rico. I could fly, I guess. And I've gone back maybe 2 years over the past years, but I love hosting it. And I love, when I left Texas, my friends were like, well, where are we going to do Seder? And I was like, you're not Jewish. You don't have to do it. They're like, oh, we love it. I'm like, I don't know, maybe someone will do it. But I love hosting and sharing with other people. So.
I love that. And tell us, I mentioned it earlier, tell us about what inspired you to do this big virtual Seder, and how did that go? Because there's a lot of room for error with virtual.
Yeah, I've done 2 virtual Seders now. Now that we've had 2 Passovers during this pandemic. So the first one, I think, we realized it was just going to be, this Passover, the first time was kind of close to lockdown. So we're like, all right, we're going to have to do Passover, just the 2 of us. And I feel like I heard people commenting they're going to be alone, or for the first year, they're, just going to have them and their significant other, or their kids, and they've never hosted before. They had a lot of questions, and I'm happy to answer questions. And then I don't even know where it came from. I was like, oh, it would be really fun to do this virtually. So last year we did my husband and I here, and then we Zoomed with my mom and her boyfriend in Connecticut, and my grandma called in. And we just kind of did our normal Seder, and then people watched. And we had, I think, close to 1,000 people watching, and we just had really great reactions. this year we had a little technical difficulty in that the Zoom trying to connect to my mom did not work. So it was just me and my husband, but I think it was still good. And I think I might be done. I don't know.
Well, I say,
hopefully next year we'll be able to have 20 people over. But it's been, both of the years were fun, and people, it was similar. I was like, you can have your own Seder plate or not. You can follow along with us with the matzah and the candles and everything, or just watch, like whatever you want to do. You can watch the replay, whatever works for you.
Everything I'm hearing is just so much about you reaching out to bring people into Judaism in their small way, in a big way, and I absolutely love that. And I hope if you're listening, you're inspired from this episode to do the same. Reach out to someone your way. There's no right way to be Jewish. I say that all the time. There really isn't a right way to be Jewish. Make it yours and take inspiration for Amy. I mean, to have reached out to thousands to do a virtual Seder, there's so many reasons not to do it, and you chose to do it with all the technical difficulties and I'm sure you impacted so many people. And on that note, you mentioned, obviously I know very well, Amy's not just the queen of Jewish food with What Do You Want to Eat? She also has a cookbook as well, which we're going to link to in the show notes. I'm lucky enough to have my own copy. It's a great cookbook. Mm-hmm. She's also not the founder, but you own Modern Tribe. I want to hear about that story, which is an amazing Judaica. We need a new word for Judaica. I can't bear that word. It makes me think of like old, crumbly. Yeah, Jewish gift.
I know, we say Jewish gifts. I mean, Judaica is good for SEO.
Yeah, Judaica is
Jewish gifts is what I usually say.
And it's this awesome online store where you can buy anything and everything for your Jewish style, whether it's something funny and silly, whether it's something for $5 or a stunning, $500-$600 piece of Judaica and everything in between. And you've got these big platforms, and the Instagram and the book. I want to know what it's like being Jewish on a public platform. Do you get any hate? Do you get more love? And also, having the platform, has it encouraged you to be more openly and unapologetically Jewish, or are you always that way?
Yeah, I think, anytime you're gonna have a public persona, you're gonna, no matter what your topic is, you're gonna get haters. And I would say I get like way, 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 way more positive feedback than haters. I honestly get any negative feedback either, just in general. Like I have friends who have Instagram accounts that get, people talk about their looks, and people talk about, what they did, and they're like, I have very, very positive in like emails in my inbox and on my Instagram DMs. So overwhelmingly it's very positive. And then sometimes there's some spammers or bots. I don't even think they're all real people. I just delete and then move on. It's, I don't really dwell on it. So.
And how has your platform encouraged you to be openly and unapologetically Jewish? And
yeah, I guess I don't know.
Part of who you are.
Yeah, I guess now I'm more, publicly, I guess, but I think it's always been who I am, and I've always been exactly who I am, which I think is a blessing that, that's not been a struggle for me. And it's maybe, I'm colorful and I like glitter and I'm a little quirky, but it's just, people ask like starting their own brand or social media account, like what they can do. And I'm like, just be yourself and do what you normally do. And then it's easy. It's so much harder to try to be someone else. So if people don't like you, then screw them. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you can grow the way you've grown if you're not unapologetically yourself or authentic, because you attract your tribe, and the people that are not into you, great, they can go somewhere else. But you build these strong ties with like-minded people that also want to be in your world, and I think it's the only way really to be.
Yeah, and I think too, it's like I'm not trying to represent anyone else specifically. It's just these are like my opinions. This is me. I'm not representing every single Jewish person. So then it's like it's much easier when you're just like, here's what I think about this, or I think definitely in the last few years I've gone from posting more like exclusively food to more about social issues, which I think is a very Jewish thing too, to care about social justice. But at the end, it's all just me in my life. So if that doesn't resonate with someone, then unfollow. Bye. I don't care. Like I don't care. But I really don't care how many followers I have. It's like as long as they're engaging, and I have great followers that comment and engage, and that's more important to me than having like 1 million followers. Although I would take 1 million followers. I don't even know if I have time. I barely have time to reply to DMs as it is.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think I would have time to have the same kind of engaging conversations, and I reply to pretty much everyone. So I don't think I'd be able to do that with more followers. So it's a blessing and a curse.
Now, speaking of you and authenticity and glitter and rainbows, reminded me of your wedding. I want to hear about your wedding, which we'll link to in the show notes. It's on Smashing the Glass, obviously. Amy's was a Bright Club member, and we followed her wedding plans avidly and then featured her wedding.
Yay.
And then I want to hear about your Batmitzvah too. But let's start with the wedding.
All my favorite things. Our wedding, almost 2 years ago now. I met my husband when I was living in San Francisco. So I lived in Texas. That's where I started my blog. I lived there for 7 years. I kind of ran out of men to date. I needed a new state. So I moved to California where my brother was living, and he owns Modern Tribe with me. So I moved there to kind of work on Modern Tribe with him and just have a change of scenery. And within 6 months, I met my husband. And within 6 months after that, he got a job opportunity in Puerto Rico and said, "Do you want to move to Puerto Rico with me?" And I said, "Yes." And then 6 months later in Puerto Rico, he proposed to me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, love a love story.
So, yes. Actually, maybe that was like 8 months later, but anyway, not too long later. And then, so this was May 2019. And we decided to get married in Michigan, which is where he's from, since it was easy. My family's a little more all over, and it was easy for all of them to get to Michigan. And we were like, all right, we either get married soon or we have to wait a year. Because we don't want to get married when it's cold. We were worried about weather delays and that kind of thing, which ended up being a huge blessing because it would have been a Corona wedding if we had waited a year. So we got married 4 months later, which if anyone's planning a wedding, it sounds like a lot of time, but it's really not that much time because a lot of vendors get booked. Wedding dresses you have to get, sometimes 4 months in advance. So I didn't really think about that. I kind of thought about all the things. I wasn't worried about vendors that were booked. I'm like, all right, who are the vendors? They're not booked. So I just started, we picked a location, and then from there just kind of booked everything. And I knew I wanted a colorful dress. So I looked at some wedding websites, and I think there's some more colorful ones even now than there were 2 years ago, but there weren't that many. I thought about maybe getting a veil with some color or adding color somehow with like some tulle layers. But it's like a really fine line when doing a colorful wedding of it looking cheesy. Maybe some people think my wedding does look cheesy, but I don't think it does.
It's not cheesy at all.
Thank you. But it's like when you have like a white wedding or a blush wedding, it's like almost always going to look classy. But when you're doing a rainbow wedding, it can look really tacky. So
not tacky.
I was like, I don't want to DIY too much stuff. It ended up being, my husband also loves color, but he really wanted like a black tie wedding. He wanted to wear a tuxedo, and I was like, do whatever you want. So we booked a more classic venue, which I think helped like balance the color. And then he was in a tuxedo, and then he wanted a lot of like gold involved, like a little more of like a classic, maybe like Art Deco, kind of vibe. So that I think like the gold and the black with all the color, I think it ended up being a really good balance, just like us. So,
yes.
So I ended up finding my dress just on, a department store website. I ordered a few and had them sent to my mom when I was going to go visit. And we were going to a few wedding dress stores too, which I'm glad I did for the experience, but like I hated every single dress I tried on. Like it was not even one that was a contender. They were just, I also think maybe the places I went, they just were not listening to me. I was like, I want to look snatched. I want it like simple, but not boring. And they were like, how about this intricate beading and lace? And I was like, no, I hate that. It's just not what I want. So anyway, the dress I ended up getting was like very simple shape, kind of fit on the top, ball gown, with like tulle underneath on the bottom. But the color was like a glittery, it had like threads of silver, pink, all involved. So it was like sparkly and
stunning,
kind of ridiculous. I loved it. Yeah,
it
might be a prom dress, but there's a money saving tip for you. Go look at prom dresses. My dress is not expensive. So.
And I want to hear about your bubbe and the rainbow challah, and also isn't your bubbe a big part of your business, right?
Yes, yeah. So with the wedding, it kind of, at first I booked all the things you had to book, and then I started thinking about all the details. So I did things like I made some fun signs that said things like, Mazel Tov, that were like in glitter letters for our photo booth. And then I started to add like personal touches. I didn't want a cake initially. My mom's a really big dessert person. She's like, you have to have cake. I was like, fine. So I was like, but it's going to be a funfetti cake. So I got the funfetti cake. And then she was like, what if you had a rainbow challah for your challah? Because I don't know. I might have been the first person. I was definitely one of the first people to make a rainbow challah on the internet. It was one of my first blog recipes like 10 years ago. So definitely rainbow challahs are everywhere now, but it's something I've been making rainbow challah. I'm not gonna say I was the first. Definitely people have also been making rainbow
I'll
challah.
say you're the first.
I was an early adopter to the rainbow challah trend. So I've been making it for like a good 11 years now. It's one of my favorite kind of challahs to make. And I've done it with natural colors, whatever. So I was like, all right, I can do that, but like, how am I gonna bring this challah to Michigan from Puerto Rico? So I made the challah with my mom and my bubby, which was super special. When I was visiting Connecticut, we froze it, and then my mom carried it on the plane, like as her carry on like a little baby, you know, like she was joking she was gonna buy another seat for it. I was like, that's crazy, but I don't know. So she like wrapped it really well and brought it, and then it ended up being like perfect.
Can I just that was really have to take a moment for that, because I think to me that is you know, a beautiful detail of a wedding. You know, we worry about budgets and flowers and food and and actually it's those special moments that, you know, Amy made the challah with 2 generations. It was frozen, it was fit, and people in it, the rainbow. I mean, it's everything to me. I love that detail.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely think, from it. You know, people listening are planning a wedding. I think the best touches to a wedding cost nothing or very close to nothing. So I think the most memorable. So we also had like signature drinks that were very meaningful to us, and that, you know, that doesn't cost more than just having not an exciting drink. So I think, you know, things that add meaning can not cost a lot, but add a lot of sentiment to your wedding or really any event. You could relate that back to Jewish holidays too. You don't have to have, you know, the perfect place setting, and like, you know, brisket can get expensive. You can have a chicken, and it can also be very meaningful, and it's all the thought you put into it.
And as I say, I've seen your bubbe mentioned on Instagram, on the blog. Tell me about her, you know, and how she's influenced you, and how she's involved in your fantastic businesses.
Oh yeah, she's wonderful. She's been involved in my life, you know, and she's just the most encouraging person. Like anytime I have a new, you know, venture I'm going towards. So when I decided to pursue cooking, I started my blog when I was working at a consultancy job, and I quickly decided I wanted this to be my career. I quit my job to go to culinary school, and my bubby goes to Marshall's and buys like every cooking tool she can get. You know, she's like, oh, I got a cherry pitter and an avocado saver, like all these like random things. And she sends me all of them, and she's just the most encouraging person, and always has like the best feedback, and just super positive all the time too. She's just really funny. She helps me write my Modern Tribe newsletter. So like what we always have for every holiday, Bubby's picks, and she picks her favorite items. And that email does the best out of any emails. People really value her opinion.
We all want a bubbe like yours.
Yeah, so she has great taste. So I really appreciate that as well. And yeah, we just, you know, I see her whenever I can. And we always like to cook together and just schmooze and play mahjong, and she's just wonderful.
So was she a big influence in your childhood? Did you live in the same neighborhood? And I'm just jealous, because I always wanted a wonderful, my dad's side grandma would have been a typical Jewish grandma. She died when I was 5, and my other grandma, who was fantastic on my mum's side, Israeli, lived in Israel. So I've always, the dream of the bubbe, I love hearing these stories.
Yeah, I mean, she grew up in she lived in the Boston area, which is about an hour and a half from us, but we saw her all the time, definitely for every holiday. You know, but we also had, you know, we did our own traditions. Like whenever we come over her house, she had a huge platter of shrimp out. Not very kosher. I probably, if you would ask me when I was like a teenager what's the Jewish food, I thought shrimp. You know, we had shrimp at every holiday. So she definitely taught me to do things her own way as well. And she makes really great, she's a great baker. Mandel bread, rugula, honey cake, those are all her signatures. Blintz, she makes really good blintzes. We have memories of making the pancakes, and you just like spread them all out, you know, and then filling them, frying some, freezing some. It's just like all over the place, but it's so fun. So yeah, I have lots of great memories and lots of holidays spent together.
Are there any particular recipes that you make that are from your childhood or your family? Or I know you're great at inventing, you know, new ways to do Jewish food.
Yeah, well, that's how I started my blog. I told my mom I was starting this blog, and she's like, let me get a few of your grandmother's recipes. So she of course, she's like, you know, she asked my grandmother, and she's like, the next day she had scanned, like she had all these like index cards with like chicken scratch on them. And she had scanned all of them at her office and printed them and mailed them to me. Like, don't know if that's the best way to do it. But so I had all these, print offs of index cards, and a lot of my grandmother's recipes are not, how a recipe writer would write them. So it was like brisket, season, cook, the end. It was like cook how long, which method, how much seasoning. So I took a lot of these, and I'd call her, and then I'd kind of tweak things, and then things I was learning in culinary school, which was really great to learn different techniques. And then I started thinking like, oh, why do we braise brisket? Why do we do this? So that was really helpful as I was learning to develop my own recipes and then tweak my grandma's recipes. But I definitely still make her Jewish apple cake is one of my favorites, and I like hardly tweak that at all. Her blintzes are really great. Mandel bread. So definitely a lot of her recipes are still ones I use, which I think is great. But if you don't have Bubby's recipes, it is okay. You can have mine, and you can also make your own. I think people stress about that too. So
exactly.
My takeaway: don't stress.
Doesn't make you any less Jewish if your grandma didn't make honey cake, or you bought your menorah from Target. It doesn't make you any less Jewish. So
we should support small businesses like Modern Tribe.
Absolutely. We're going to link to Modern Tribe in the show notes. I'm a big fan of Modern Tribe. Amy's, you have to at least check it out. I'm sure you'll end up buying some stuff because it's so good. But check it out. We'll link to it in the show notes.
It's fun. I love running it. It's kind of weird. It's become. I still do my blog. I do new recipes, but like really the store has become my new passion. I love finding new unique things that you can't get anywhere else, and I love connecting with the customers and bringing people products that help them live their Jewish life. So it's been super rewarding.
And also supporting so many wonderful Jewish artists and small Jewish businesses at the same time that you're representing. It's wonderful. So I want to finish by talking a bit about community. You've obviously lived in lots of different places across America and now in Puerto Rico. How do you go about, creating community? What makes a close Jewish community for you? Is it temple? Is it online friends in real life? Is it just you and your husband? Tell me about your version of community.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of, definitely during the pandemic, I only saw my husband, so it was a lot more online and a lot more, I don't live near my parents or my grandmother. So we like Zoom cook together sometimes. You don't have to always be in the same room, or, I just made a new Rosh Hashanah recipe this morning. I sent a picture to my mom, and I just, it's just fun to get the feedback and feel like you're connected that way. I think whenever I've moved somewhere else new, I've like tried to connect with the Jewish community somehow, either with, the JCC or the Jewish Federation. Mostly also with like my blog too, to see if I can contribute somehow, like I can, teach a class or, lead something with them, and also just to meet whoever's local. So I think there's so many wonderful resources today and so many great Jewish organizations that are doing really fun, unique stuff. Like One Table Shabbat's a great one too. They're all over the place. That you can connect with people. But then I don't, limit it with, when my husband and I moved here, we had met another Jewish couple, and then we had a few couples we met that were not Jewish, and I still just invited them all over for Seder. I'm like, these are my friends. It doesn't have to always be all people that are familiar with the customs. You can kind of share a little bit too, like I said earlier. So I don't worry too much about it. I think I have my internet friends that are always there for me. So I'm not, concerned with meeting Jews in a new place necessarily, since I have my online group as well.
Absolutely. And I think we've all needed online community more than ever before in this last year. Tell me about Smashing Life. Obviously, you're a founding member. Amy joined Smashing Life when I started it back in July 2019. She's seen it grow and made friends and connections. And wow, I think, was it you even you shared a job about another Jewish food influencer that another Smashing Life member ended up getting, and it's just an incredible.
Yes, I did share a job.
It's an incredible network.
A great group. Someone was trying to hire someone for a Jewish organization, and I thought they're like, you can share with other people, and I was like, well, I don't want to share with everyone, but I know this group is going to be a group that cares about Jewish causes and is knowledgeable, and people that if you want to join this group and like participate, you care. So I think I knew anyone that was replying would be a good person. So and plus I now I feel like I know a lot of people in the group too. So I joined with Smashing the Glass when I was getting engaged, and I joined your group to kind of help plan my wedding, which was really great. I planned my wedding really fast. So a lot of the, early stages I just like did really quickly, but then all these like little details were super helpful, like helping decide if I wanted a day of coordinator. I found I ended up getting a pink feather robe to get ready in that another bride had gotten in white. So I got pink, but she sent me the link to it. So just like kind of the fun details like that. But through like connecting and chatting with all the women and the group, I wasn't ready to just give that up after I got married, but I wasn't as, didn't have as much to share in the group anymore. So it made sense to join this new group about Jewish life with the same great women in it. So it's been really fun. You can just kind of, I really like when you have different experts speak on different topics, but then people just ask whatever questions they want. And there's no question too silly, and there's someone always there to answer any time of day, which is people are all over the world. I know we have
exactly
South Africa and England and everywhere.
Yeah, no, it's great. And if you're listening and you're interested in being part of our community membership club, Smashing Life, you can sign up to the wait list. It's smashinglife.club. We are currently closed for enrollment, but we'll be opening the doors soon, probably just after Rosh Hashanah. So make sure you're signed up there. So I'm going to end with 3 quick fire questions for you. Easy ones for you, I'm sure. And then we're sadly going to have to say goodbye. I could sit here all day and talk to you, Amy.
I always enjoy talking to you too, Karen. You were like, I have a lot of questions. I was like, I'm not worried. I'm like, we could chat. You could ask one question and we'd probably just chat the rest of the time.
Will you come back and do another episode later on in the year?
Of course.
Maybe we'll do something before Hanukkah and dive deeper into your latkes. So 3 questions for you. Matzo ball soup or bagels with lox?
And those are 2 of my favorite Jewish foods, but my comfort food is matzo ball soup, so I'm going to go with that.
Homemade challah or store-bought challah?
Oh, it's got to be homemade.
Red wine, white wine, or grape juice for Kiddush?
Red wine for any time.
And finally, not so much quick fire, you might have to think about this one. If you could have Friday night dinner with any 3 Jewish people, dead or alive, who would they be and why? Who would it be?
I love this question. There's lots of people I would love to have dinner with, but I think I would go for like a woman powerhouse team. I would go with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, my bubbe, and Joan Rivers. I feel like it would be the most fun. We would have a lot to chat about. Maybe there'd be a little arguing, but it would be vibrant.
I love that they're all kind of older women as well. Some of my best friends are much older than me, and there's so much to learn from them. That's probably why you're going for them.
I have a lot of elderly friends.
Yeah, me too.
I resonate with like real friends, like people I like go out with that are like 80. So I don't know. I resonate. I don't even think I'm an old soul. I just like, there's a lot to learn. Yeah, exactly. And they're just cool. I think because they don't care anymore, about, you don't care what people think. You don't care what, if you're doing the right thing, you just like kind of do what you want. I think that resonates with me.
Oh, Amy, it's been so much fun today. Where's the best place for people to go to find out more about your sparkly rainbow Jewish glittery food world?
I'm all over the internet. My blog is What Jew Want to Eat. Same as my Instagram, storemoderntribe.com. You can email me, amy@whatyouwantoeat.com. Any cooking questions, life questions. I'm always there to listen. Happy to help.
And we will link to all the recipes Amy mentioned, her Modern Tribe store, some of the funny stories, Amy's wedding. We're going to have it all in the show notes.
We didn't even talk about my Batmitzvah. Well, next time.
Can you sum up your Batmitzvah in 3 words?
3 words.
Or 1 sentence.
Oh, yeah. 90s rainbow and Beanie Babies.
Well,
Beanie Babies is kind of synonymous with 90s, but there you go.
Do you have a link to it on the internet? We can link to it.
I have. If you go to my Instagram, I posted some pictures in May for the anniversary of my Bat Mitzvah, and it was definitely I had so many great comments on that post too. It was just kind of fun I asked people what their theme was, and there's like some awesome themes. So it's kind of fun to read the comments there too. So if you scroll back a little, there's a picture of me holding a Torah in a baby blue Ann Taylor suit with matching baby blue nails. So you can read a little bit about my Bat Mitzvah there.
Oh my God, it's going to blow up now. All right, Amy, you will be back soon, I hope, for more fun and mischief on the podcast.
Yes, I would love to be back. Thanks for having me. This is so fun.
Thank you for being amazing.
Mm.
Bye. If this episode inspired you in some way, I'd love you to take a screenshot of you listening on your device and post it to your Instagram stories and tag me at Your Jewish Life so I can hear from you. I'd love to be Instagram friends. And if there's anyone you know that would benefit from this episode, share it with them and subscribe, and let's spread our message and mission of Your Jewish Life Your Way. I'd love you to leave a review as well, because again, that helps more people see the podcast, hear the episodes, and inspire them with Jewish joy and leaning into a Jewish life they love living. I also want to take a moment to tell you about my community, my membership community club for Jewish and Jewish women called Smashing Life. It's essentially everything you've ever wanted in a Jewish community. It's a space to live your Jewish life your way, connect with like-minded Jewish women, share Jewish culture and joy, and most importantly, it's a place to build the life you want on your terms and learn Jewish rituals that will fill your life with purpose. Most importantly, we make it fun in 21. It is a lot of fun in there. We do all kinds of things. We have monthly expert masterclasses chosen by you. We have social events, both online and in real life, all around the world. We have virtual Shabbats. We have a dedicated parenting sub-community. We've got a dedicated entrepreneur sub-community. We have a book club and a crafts club and a members only recipes book that everyone contributes to, and great Jewish bake-offs and incredible conversation, and most importantly, support and warmth in a completely non-judgmental, inclusive Jewish space. If you'd like to find out more or add your name to the waitlist, just go to smashinglife.club. The doors are currently closed for new members, but we're opening them really soon, so add your name and be the first to know. Just head to smashinglife.club.